You don't want to miss this episode. We're going to talk about the power of storytelling and sales. And this is not just for salespeople. It's for everyone. Everyone is selling their ideas, their values, their beliefs. You want to be successful in life, you need to be successful at sales. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Control and Compound. I'm Darren Mitchell, and joining me as always, Christina Wyatt. Christina, how you doing on this beautiful day?
Hey, Darren, I am doing great. I think everybody is in for a treat today for this podcast. I'm excited to do it.
Yeah, I was a little hesitant on this one, but you know, sales touches every aspect of life, and storytelling is such a big part of it. And again, it's not just about selling a product, but I had a little pushback on this one, but you convinced me that we should do it.
Yeah, I know you're a bit hesitant, Darren, but I think it's going to be a good one. For everybody listening, a few months back, we had a team meeting with our staff, and Darren had done a presentation for everybody on sales. And it wasn't just for our sales team, it was for the entire team, because you're absolutely right. Storytelling and sales impact all different aspects of life. And I had gone to Darren, I was like, listen, I really think that we should turn this into a podcast. Like, our team thoroughly enjoyed it. Alex in the back was like, I wish I had that on video. Why didn't we record it? So I thought we should definitely do a podcast and get it out there and share it with our listeners.
All right. We're here now.
Yes. Now, we do show up every week to do this podcast and to bring you something meaningful. All we ask in return is that you subscribe, hit the bell button so you see new content. Any kind of engagement, we really do appreciate. So if you could do that for us, that would be great.
Okay, so I want to start off by telling a couple stories. So I had lunch with the vice president of one of the largest insurance companies in Canada. She was vice president of underwriting. And she told me last year that insurance company did not pay 4 different life insurance claims. 3 of them were suicides in the first 2 years, which all insurance companies do not pay suicide in the first 3 years. And the 4th one was someone died of pancreatic cancer 6 months after buying a policy. And they found out that person forgot to mention they had that cancer a year and a half before they applied for the life insurance. And those are the only 2 reasons life insurance contracts are not paid in Canada: suicide in the first 2 years, or if you lie in the application, they have a 2-year contestability period that if you die in the first 2 years, they're going to go back and investigate to see if you lied. That story there is so much more memorable than if I said, insurance companies pay 99.9% of the claims. Because when people hear a stat, they're like, well, maybe I'll be the one that they don't pay. But when they hear the story about how just about every single claim is paid, with the exception of suicide clause and the 2-year contestability, and there are only 4, and this is major insurance company, that is a much more impactful way of teaching that lesson to whoever you're talking to. Another one I love is, when I went on my education crusade after 2008 and learned about what the wealthy people were doing and studying them, I was at a conference in Florida, and this accountant who had all business owner clients talked about after 2008 to 2010 how all of his business owners clients that had access to money were significantly wealthier. And he told a story about an individual who had $2 million of cash value life insurance. And you got to remember, at the time, real estate plummeted, stock market plummeted, and banks stopped loaning money. And he was able to access $1 million or $1.5 million cash value life insurance loan, no questions asked. And he bought 13 additional businesses, whatever business he was in, for 30 cents on the dollar. And he 10x'd his wealth in 4 years. He 10x'd his wealth in 4 years. And some smart aleck raised their hand and said, what was the loan interest rate on that? What was the policy loan interest rate? And the accountant's like, who gives a crap? He 10x'd his wealth. That is a much more powerful way of remembering it is so important to be in control of your money. And we talk every single day to people about being in control of your money to take advantage of opportunities and deal with emergencies. But the power of stories, the stories stick with people. So it's much more powerful than rattling off a bunch of stats. So stories are great, way better than just reading facts. So that's a huge part of sales. Learn to be a better storyteller. You're going to be better at sales.
Yeah, I love that. And I love those stories because they're impactful when you tell it as a story. So why do you think that stories land better than facts?
Well, they did studies on this, and stories are 22 times more memorable than facts. Think of that, 22 times. You're 22 times more likely to remember a story than you are about facts. Stories elicit emotion. Stories elicit feelings. People relate to them. Stats, boring in one ear, out the other. So stories come with emotion, stories come with feelings, and stories are 22 times more memorable. So stories going to help you in all aspects of life. All aspects of life.
Yeah, I agree. I was preparing for a presentation once, and I had come across someone had showed me the stat that when you do a presentation or when you're talking to someone in general, and I know this is a stat, but 55% is actually body language, 38% is your voice, and only 7% is the words. And when you're telling those stories, there is that emotion behind it. You're not just spewing facts. You're showing that, your voice is going up, it's going down. Like you're showing your body language. So when you're in person, these stories are even better, right? Because you've got more of that emotion to it. So I think that kind of ties into it with it as well when I was listening to what you were saying.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, what's next?
So you often say that life is sales. So it's not just for salespeople, this conversation, life is sales. What do you mean by that?
I think if you want to be successful in life, you need to be successful at selling. Now, what do I mean by that? If you show me the most successful CEO or a successful CEO, right, chief executive officer of a company, I'll show you a successful salesperson because that person is selling their ideas, their values. You show me a successful pastor or minister, that person is successful at selling because they're sharing their vision, their passion, the Bible, whatever it is they're selling. We broke it down in our business, customer relationship manager. Now, that is a non-sales position, but if you want to be great at that, you need to be great at sales because what are you selling? You're selling the values of the company. You're selling clients to say, this is why I need this information from you. This is why we need some medical information or financial information. How you convince people to provide the information required in order to fill out an application. People don't think of that as sales, but I think that is completely sales. You want to be better at what you do, you need to be better at sales. Even, our administrators, our lead administrators, you want to be better at answering the phone. Well, that's really sales. You want to be, you want to be courteous. You want to be selling the values of our company again. You want to be selling why they would want to do business with Control and Compound, why they would want to set up a meeting with a wealth coach. Like every aspect of life is sales. You might not be selling a product. It could be the values, the credibility, the confidence, whatever it is you're doing in life. If you get better at sales, you're going to be better at whatever it is you do in life. So it doesn't just apply to salespeople. It applies to every single thing. I look at a lot of my friends and their spouses, and I'm like, how did you convince this person to marry you? Most of my guy friends we think are ugly, and their wives are lovely. But that's you're selling a vision of future with your significant other. So everything in life is about sales, selling why someone should be in a relationship with you, selling why someone should deal with your business, or why someone should buy the car from you. So it doesn't have to be just selling a product.
Yeah, the team loved that one when you talked about your biggest sale that you ever made. Your wife. Biggest sale ever made. Okay, so we talked about sales in life, but what about sales for actual sales? The sales side of it, like on the sales side. Let's dig into that. Why are stories such a big deal on the sales side?
Yeah, stories are emotional and they're memorable. So they often teach. They teach a much more effective way. So the Three Little Pigs. We all remember the Three Little Pigs. I think the brick house was a little better than the straw house. What did it teach? Well, a little more hard work and prep and doing it the right way instead of building the straw house and going having fun. The tortoise and the hare. Slow and steady wins the race. We all remember those stories, and we haven't heard them in years. But because they're stories that teach a lesson, they're memorable. Stories do the same thing. They're sticky. So, you tell a fact is one thing, but you tell a story, they're sticky. People are going to remember that story. And oftentimes we have people, can you tell me that story again about a story we will tell? So I think people feel the emotions of a story. They remember it. So crucial in sales, if you want people to remember what you told them, and we know most people in one ear or out the other, you have to include a story or some stories in the process.
I also think it helps with them being able to relate, right? They can relate to the story. A lot of the time we've been in the situation that the story might be pertaining to, and you can see, oh, well, I can see myself there too. That's where where I was, or that's where I want to be. You tell a story about achievements and stuff. That's where you want to be too. So very cool. I like that. We're all about action here, though. So I want to talk about, and you had given the team these action steps too. How can we, if someone wants to be a better storyteller, what can they do? What can we start doing today to become a better storyteller?
Yeah, I would say number one, keep your story short. A story that goes on and on and on and on, you lose people. Now, again, depending upon your audience, the story can be of different lengths. If you're talking to your family, your spouse, your friends, great. They might indulge you and allow for more development of the story. But when you're talking to a client, those stories got to be pretty concise. If you spend 3 minutes or 4 minutes on a story, that's not going to be an effective use of your time. So make sure they're short. And the other thing is, you mentioned a lot of us have stories because in our business, we've been doing this for so long, meeting with so many people, helping so many Canadians. We've got lots of stories to share about what we've done in business, in real estate, what we've done to help clients, what clients use the product for. But if you're not there yet, you can borrow stories, right? So you can say, oh, well, I heard this great story about this guy who met with this accountant and talked about the power of being in control of your money. So it doesn't necessarily have to be your story. Now, it's better if it's your story. But, we get a lot of young people, some young people in the audience going, well, I don't have all this life experience. I don't have all these stories. And until you get there, you can borrow other people's stories. Now, don't take credit for the stories, but borrow other people's stories. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Just tell stories, and that's going to help you connect with people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know I've shared your story. You've got great stories. So I love sharing your stories as well. And you just say, well, this is what Darren did. And, it's a great story to be told. So I know you love, and this was very well taken in the team meeting, was the power of 3s, 4s, and 5s. And this was actually the first time that you broke this down for me. I hadn't heard you tell this portion before either. So I was quite, it was all new and I loved it and it made sense. Can you break down the power of 3, 4, and 5 for us?
Yeah, I enjoy this because people don't realize the power of 3s, 4s, and 5s until you tell them. And then they're like, the light bulb goes off and it's like, oh yeah. So it's like the psychology of memory. So when you look at the psychology of memory, people love the rule of 3. So our brains love it. It's rhythmic. It's memorable. It's easy to repeat. Our brains love patterns of 3. Stop, drop, and roll. Anyone ever forget stop, drop, and roll? No. In the States, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. All Americans know that. What else we got? 3 little bears, 3 guys walk in a bar, 3 little pigs, 3 amigos, 3 stooges, 3 wise men, the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost. So all these things, you can remember a 3. It's rhythmic, it's catchy. So how do you use that in sales? Well, we talk about the 3 pain points, the 3 most important things. So control and compound. We talk about the 3 most important words in the English language with respect to money. Control and compound. That's memorable. We often talk about these are the only 3 places you need to invest if you want to be wealthy. Invest in yourself, invest in your business, invest in real estate or some other fixed income. Wealthy people do 3 things. Those things are memorable, catchy, and people remember them. So the power of 3s is huge, probably the most common one out there, but then 4s and 5s are great too.
All right, so we covered the 3s. Let's dig in more to the 4s and the 5s.
So 4 is great. So 4 kind of adds a little more credibility to it. without being too overwhelming, right? Here are the 17 things you need to do. Well, that's overwhelming, but fours, people can still remember fours, and it's one more than three, but it's like sometimes just gives a little more credibility. For us, what are the four wealth destroyers? Taxes, fees, volatility, and spending. Like, you don't forget that. Like, or not when you say it as many times as we have through the years, but I'm talking about our staff and sales. That there's not a sales presentation where that doesn't come up. Taxes, fees, volatility, and spending. And the fact that it's four, people remember it, give some credibility to it. And then when we enter fives are great too. Fives, we've got what are the five wealth killers? Taxes, inflation, fees, debt, and lack of control. Just fives, it gets a little, you're pushing it, but it's almost like, okay, now this is complete. It's a little more in detail, but these are the five things. Once you get past five, it really gets hard for people to remember. Threes are the easiest, then fours and fives. There's a place for all of them. I love threes and fours the most. But if you're perfecting an elevator pitch, these are the three or four things I do. If you're perfecting why is it we should deal with your company, these are the three reasons or four reasons we should deal with your company. So we had the team, we did a little exercise, and we're like, okay, so how do we incorporate this in our life? So great, we start looking at different processes and say, well, what are the four things we do here? What are the three things we do here? So for those of you that are listening and say, okay, well, this is cool, but I can't really think of the three or four, try ChatGPT, right? So ChatGPT, I went through and I said, okay, how about an industry I'm not involved in and I'm not an expert at? And I asked ChatGPT, what are the three reasons to sell your house with us? Maximum exposure. We're going to market your home all over the place, meet the most qualified buyers. Expert negotiation. Our experience means you keep more money in your pocket. Stress-free process. Pricing and paperwork, we handle all the details. Boom, boom, boom. Three reasons. Maximum exposure, expert negotiation, stress-free process. Why would you buy a car from us? Trustworthy service, quality vehicles, and customer first. How do you solve problems at your company? We listen, we solve, we follow through. So again, ChatGPT might be a starting point. You've got to incorporate your own ideas in this. But I encourage all of you that are in business, all of you that are in any position, what are the four things you do in your job every day that are important to the company? These are the three things I've done last year. You're doing your performance review. Great. You're asking for a raise. These are the three things I did. I did this, this, and this. Your boss is going to remember those three things. It's like, wow, yeah, you really did do this, this, and this. If you go in and say, here's the 17 things that I did last year and I deserve a raise, that's not going to be received as well. And when they're thinking about it over the next couple of days to decide whether they give you a raise, it's like, yeah, Christina did do this, this, and this. So again, make sure you start. You can start with ChatGPT, but obviously you got to make it your own. But you start going through all the different processes in your company. You start going through all the different things you do in life and in your job. And it's like, well, these are the three reasons we should be together. These are the three reasons you'd make a great partner. These are the three reasons why I think we should have kids. These are the three reasons why I think you should buy this product from us. These are the three reasons you should deal with our company. Again, you can jump up to 4 and 5, but power of sales, storytelling, and 3s, 4s, 5s, it's going to change your life, and regardless of what position of life you're in.
I like the 3s too. You remember it. You can't forget that. I love that. So if we were going to give one wrap up takeaway, what is the big takeaway for our listeners? I've got all kinds from here. I'm going to, remember them, but what would you say to someone listening right now, the biggest takeaway of today's conversation?
Yeah, I would say selling is not for salespeople only. Selling is for every single person in the world, because you're always selling something, whether it's your ideas, your values, your mission, your product, your service. You're always selling. And again, sales isn't a bad thing. Like sometimes people think, oh, you're just trying to sell me. No, when you're trying to sell someone your values, you want them to share the same values. When you're trying to sell somebody your idea of a future life that you can spend together with someone. You want them to buy in on the great life you're going to have. So it doesn't have to be, definitely not a negative thing, but it doesn't have to be a sales position. It has, or sales role that you need sales for. You need it in everyday life. And when you include stories in that, you're going to be better at selling. And if you're better at selling, you will be more successful in life. And if you're going to include stories, they're 22 times more likely to remember it. So remember, life is sales. Sales is success. If you want to be successful, get better at sales.
3 things to wrap it up right there.
All right. That's the power of storytelling, sales, the power of 3s, 4, 5s. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Have a great day.
Thanks for watching this episode of Control and Compound. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell button so you never miss a new episode. And if you're ready to learn more, head to our website, controlandcompound.com. The link's below.
Thank you for tuning into this episode. The information contained in this podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only and is separate and apart from the wealth coach services provided by Darren Mitchell and Associates, Inc. to its qualified clients. Control and Compound Financial expressly disclaims any and all liability or responsibility for any direct, indirect, incidental, or any other damages arising out of any individual's use of this podcast or the information in it. The views expressed here are those of each participant and guest and not necessarily those of or endorsed by Control and Compound Financial, its affiliates, subsidiaries, and their respective directors, shareholders, officers, or employees. For full disclosure, visit controlandcompound.com/podcast-media.